Hey there, welcome to the Steel Lodge. Today we're checking out Baldur's Gate 3 on the Steam Deck. Now Baldur's Gate 3 is still in early access, but it recently just got its update number 8, which added a lot of features to the game, including the new Gnome class and the Bard class as well. Gnome race, rather. But I wanted to check it out. I played this a while ago, earlier in early access, and I really like Larian's games. Divinity Original Sin 2, in my opinion, is one of the best CRPGs ever made. And I think Baldur's Gate 3 from the early access is really promising looking and is going to be up there with the all-time greats once it actually ships. Now, when you launch Baldur's Gate 3, there is a little bit of a problem. This launcher pops up and it's actually kind of annoying to get through using the Steam Deck. You can use the touch screen or you can use the trackpad to get through it, but for some reason the mapping isn't super accurate on this screen. I've used this on the desktop before and never had a problem, but on the Steam Deck, it's a bit of a pain to get through. Once you do get through this, though, you have two options to launch the game. You have the Vulkan option, or you have the DirectX option. Now, you'd assume you want to use the Vulkan option on the Steam Deck because that can just run natively on the Steam Deck, since Vulkan runs on Linux. However, there's a lot more graphical issues with the Vulkan version that I encountered. First off, we'll check that one out, but later on, I'll show you the DirectX version, which will be running through proton compatibility layer using DXVK. And that one actually had no visual problems from what I saw and had pretty similar performance overall. So if you were to play this right now, I'd actually recommend just going through and using the DirectX version. Now, regarding these Vulkan graphical glitches, it does show on the Steam page for Baldur's Gate 3 that the game does have these minor graphical issues that pop up, but I'd honestly call them more than minor for the Vulkan version of the game. I'll put up various clips here and then some more gameplay, but there is a lot of scenes where there's just things happening over the screen, like artifacts that you would see, you know, if your GPU was dying, but the GPU is not dying here, it's just graphical glitches. And for me, they were happening a lot in the game when I wasn't doing things like moving the mouse or when I'd bring the keyboard overlay up. So sometimes when they were happening, I could just move the trackpad and the cursor would just get rid of the graphical glitches that are on the screen. I'm assuming as we get closer to launch, things like this would get cleaned up quite a bit because I think Larian does want this game to play well on the Steam Deck. DS2, if I remember correctly, does run really well on the Steam Deck, so I'm assuming they'd want to get it working well here. Now, as far as settings go, I was running most of this at the medium preset just to see how it would go, and honestly, on the handheld screen, it looks really nice. For most of the time, we were above 30 FPS, but during certain cutscenes, we can definitely drop below 30 FPS, especially in effects-intensive ones. So at the end, I actually ended up dropping it to low, and it did run a little bit better there, getting closer to 40 FPS, so the game even does have a really low preset, and on the handheld with such a small screen, I don't think it looks bad at all. It actually looks good. And here, since it's blown up, it might not look as good if you're watching this on a desktop screen, but on a mobile phone, I'm sure it looks great. Honestly, the thing to me that looked the worst graphically was the beard on my character. There wasn't as many individual hair strands. It kind of just clumped together in big masses of hair. Now, as you can probably tell from the clip that's playing out right now on the screen, there are some pretty bad graphical glitches, like I mentioned earlier, on the Vulkan version that I honestly don't want to put up with. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip right along to the DXVK version because I didn't have any of these graphical issues, and the game just looked a lot better overall because none of these issues were happening. Alright, now we have the game pulled up here, and we're running on DXVK instead, so using the DirectX version from the launcher, and you can see that these graphical issues we saw in the Vulkan version aren't happening where we see all this crazy artifacting on the screen. Now, I actually want to take a moment to talk about how this game performs on the Steam Deck using the controllers and the mapping that it has, because previous to this, I had only played this game using a mouse and keyboard, but honestly for Divinity Original Sin 2, I played a lot of that game using a controller. So the mapping here is actually pretty good so far, and certain things are interesting, like to rotate the camera, the E and Q buttons are mapped onto the back of the Steam Deck, so holding the L4 button on the back of the Steam Deck will rotate the camera, but I only think one of the mappings is set there, so you can only rotate it like counterclockwise for now. But you can change that obviously with the Steam Deck's controls. If you do want to play this on the Steam Deck, I would really recommend pulling up the controller mapping page and investigating it for a good long while to get a hang of where things are located. For me, I was just making this video and wanted to see how the game ran, so I was kind of figuring things out on the fly. So things like the trackpad I prefer to the joystick. I find it to be much more accurate when using it as a mouse. And the mapping for it to click on the trackpad actually sets it to tactical camera by default, but I prefer setting that just to be a mouse click so I can move around and do things without having to press the right trigger. I find that more comfortable for my hands. One thing that's nice is that since the right stick and the left and the right trackpad are both the mouse, if my thumb got kind of sore in a certain position, I would just move it to the other one and use it there for a while, and that worked out fine. Things like the right click are mapped to the left trigger, so that works perfectly fine too. I am hoping, like I mentioned earlier, that this game gets actual controller support for the Steam version and not just this mapping for a controller to keyboard inputs, because that would just be better overall to use things like the UI with you know, the stick and not having to just use a pseudo cursor to select everything, because like I mentioned earlier, for Divinity it worked really well there, and having it work here as well as it did there would be nice. Now, also regarding the text size and how the game looks on a smaller screen, I think it works fine. I have decent vision with my glasses on, so I didn't have any problems reading the text on the screen, but the Steam Deck does have that built-in magnifier if you do need it. From a handheld point, this game looks really good on the handheld, and it's really cool to see I would say this is a next-gen RPG running on the Steam Deck, because I don't think this game could run on the Switch if you wanted it to. Obviously, Divinity Original Sin 2 does run on the Switch, but this is an upgraded version of the engine. In my opinion, this game looks way better graphically than Divinity Original Sin 2 does. Now we're out of the initial starting area, that's a pretty small space, and into a much larger space, because I want to see how the game performed here. Now if we look here at some of the textures, they are streaming in and not coming in on time. It'll happen in a second right here. You can tell that things look pretty bad, but that's honestly the main issue I had with the textures. Other than that, things looked pretty good, and I am playing this off the MicroSD card. I'm assuming on the internal SSD, this might not be as big of a problem because you have that extra speed to load things in. And the initial load time from going to the closed space to the open space here was pretty long, honestly. But performance-wise, the performance is good in this open area. I was actually pretty afraid that we're just going to tank the frame rate pretty hard right away. But the worst frame rate we see is in the mid-20s, high 20s, and that's when there's a lot of effects on screen, like a lot of fire and effects going off during fights. Other than that, it's pretty good in the open area, mid-30s, sometimes even in the 40 FPS on medium settings here. If you want to drop it down in the graphics department, you can to get better frame rate. And this is a turn-based game, so it's not like there's any fast action responses needed. So I honestly think playing at 30 FPS on a handheld is very acceptable for a title like this. I basically said everything I want to in this video, and I really look forward to Baldur's Gate 3 getting a bigger release down the line, because this game is so good already. And I don't want to spoil myself too much and play the early access a ton, because I want to come into this really having more of a fresh experience. I've already played 20 hours of the early access about a year ago, so I really want Larian to finish, you know, taking their time and crafting this game to be just a gem and a wonderful product when it releases. If you want more Steam Deck videos and more gaming videos in general, consider subscribing to my channel. I've got a lot of content over there, and we'll have a lot more coming out soon. Have a good one, guys.
She feels confusion, resolve, and a hint of gratitude.
Ah! Did you feel that? You've got the same thing I do, in your head. The same. It must be that tadpole they put in our eyes. I assume that's what caused our minds to cross.
These things are going to consume us from the inside and turn us into mind flayers.
I don't know much, but enough to be afraid. This is how they breed. We host their spawn, and once they're ready, they'll tear right through us. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I'm not going to wait to find out. You and I need a healer. Finding one won't be easy in this wilderness. We'll need supplies. I'm hoping something of use might be behind this door, but I've barely made a dent in it so far. Be my guest, but that door's too strong. Maybe there's another way, up the cliff. Hopefully there's no more of these things. Or just company for our final moments. But you're right. Whatever lies ahead will be a little less daunting with support. You can call me Shadowheart. Lead the way.
Cursed to put my hands on everything.
I've tried already. Damn thing won't budge.
Don't waste a step.
More of those wretched things. One strike could be lethal.
Let's end this. Intended! Maxi Vertum! Perhaps our survival isn't such a distant prospect.